Good morning everyone and welcome to this year's virtual careers event. Today's event will be recorded and posted on our social media websites after the event, in case you want to rewatch the event at a later date or if your friends weren't able to join today. You don't need to worry, we can't hear or see you, but hopefully you can hear and see us. With all the challenges you have faced over the last year, on top of being a teenager and thinking of your future and your career path, it can be rather daunting to say the least. Unfortunately, we're not able to run a careers fair as we have done in the past, but we still wanted to give you an opportunity to hear from local employers and give you an opportunity to think about your future. We are very lucky to have a number of speakers with us today from a range of organisations who will share about their experiences and their work backgrounds. I would like to introduce our first speaker to you, Tarn Clark from Kent Police.
Good morning, my name is Tanya Clark and I'm a Community Liaison Officer for Kent Police based down at Dover. I wanted to take some time today just to talk about the Kent Police careers, how you get into the police, and also a little bit about my job. So we talk about why policing in the first place. So as you can see, you're looking at rewarding, so it's about helping others through the difficult times, solving crimes, improving their quality of life, engaging with all different parts of the community. And that in itself can be challenging. You're dealing with members of the public, sometimes on the worst day of their lives, and that could be for any reason. They look at you to make things better. And sometimes that's not so easy when you first meet someone or come across the incident. They also might not trust you, so it's about breaking down those barriers and finding a unique way of working with people. It's definitely varied, so each day is completely different, and there's also the variation of opportunities within policing. So not only do we have frontline uniform staff, but behind the scenes we have a lot of our civilian staff, our force control room and our specials make up our numbers. It's being part of a team, so the sense of belonging, and that's 24/7. You're within your own team and the wider Team Kent, as we like to call it. You will find some really good special people that you work with and form bonds, and the support is there when you need it most. The achievement side of things goes alongside rewarding. It's about you get the chance for personal development, and there's no better feeling than when you are speaking to a victim who has opened up to you about years and years of abuse, and you get that achievement, you know, you've made their day, and actually the relief that they have just being able to speak about things. So I want to tell you a little bit about my personal journey and a bit about the role of the Community Liaison Officer. So we are Community Liaison Officers, are civilian police staff. So we sit within the community safety units, which works at a local level. So it's about understanding and working with our diverse communities. It's about knowing who they are, where they're at and what their issues are. And it's about building that trust and between those communities, and that might be really difficult and challenging at start because of it might be a cultural barrier, it might be language barrier, or it might just be a mistrust in the police, or a bad experience with them. It could also be that, you know, national media shows a bit of a shadow on the policing as an institution, and we need to break that down, and that's what community liaison officers do. So we make our community contacts at a local level, and we then break those barriers down and encourage them to increase the reporting. That way we get a better understanding of the local community, what's going on, what are their issues, you know, how can we help, and how can we get other people on board to help us, to help them. It's about supporting the vulnerable people from communities within our minority groups. It's, you know, additional support for the victims of hate crime, so the victims of racial or religious crime towards them just because of the colour of their skin or their faith. It's about giving them information and advice and actually really making a difference to people's lives. The skills I use to do so is the communication skills is key. It's interpersonal, so it's being that friendly face that people feel that they can trust and speak to you. I have to prioritise my workload, and a key part of my role is partnership and multi-agency working, because on our own we can't solve the problems. We have to bring in our partners and agencies that we really rely on, and in turn that gives that victim and that person or community the additional support they need. It's about valuing everyone in our communities, as everybody deserves to be treated equally and entitled to a first-class service. It's about reaching out to our communities, building those relationships and increasing the confidence and trust in police. People then feel that they're heard and respected, and they're able to live their life without fear of crime. And if a victim does fall foul to crime, then they feel that they can report it to us and that they are actually going to be supported. So why choose Kent Police? As we know, across the country, many different police forces. Now, Kent has been awarded an outstanding force for the last 4 years. That in itself is a massive achievement, and it's credit to its staff and its procedures and its mission, vision and values. We focus on what matters to the people of Kent. Our mission is to provide a first-class service 24/7, about supporting our most vulnerable in our communities, putting our victims first and at the heart of what we do. We've got exceptional support and development opportunities. We've got internal health and wellbeing. We've got mindfulness practice programs, counselling services, because at times we will need that. We've also got the Develop You programme, which gives us scope to progress in our career and how we can also transfer internally, and specialise in topics. So as well as our frontline uniformed local policing teams, we also have a rural team that goes out for rural crime. We have our dog and traffic units. We have our civilian staff, which are analytical. If you're into your numbers and fact finding, we've got our intelligence officers, serious crime, human trafficking, modern slavery unit. The list is endless. So it's not just the uniform that you see out on the streets or when you are a victim of crime. There is so much more to the Kent Police. A little bit about eligibility. Sorry, so we are taking applications from people that are 17 years old, but you wouldn't get a job offer until you was 18. For a police officer, it's 2 or more A levels or the equivalent. Specific qualifications are also required for other roles. So if you're not looking at frontline, it might be that you need a degree or a qualification in science or your mathematics, for instance. Vetting is required for everybody that applies to Kent Police, so it's really important that you don't have a criminal record or any sort of in any debt management schemes. Due to the COVID, our applications are now all online and the shortlisting is done so, and there are also a variety of interviews that are done via the technology at the moment rather than face to face. The selection and interview process does vary. Some roles you will need at least 2 or 3 interviews at different levels, and some you would just need the one. And also on the other side of it, you've got your medical fitness and your biometrics, which means your fingerprints, etc., may be required for that role. So open your mind to the opportunities, as I've just discussed this morning. It's about a desire and a commitment to help guide and protect people at the time when they really need it. It's making a real difference. So policing is a vocation and people join to make that difference for individuals and communities. It's taking pride in everything you do. You know, it's tough, it's complex and it's challenging, but it's also hugely rewarding. And it's an honour and privilege to have the opportunity to keep people safe and help the most vulnerable in our communities. And have the courage to do the right thing. You will be the one who will stand up for what's right, and, you know, have your say. You will challenge people. Does this sound like you? If so, you've got what we're looking for. And keep an eye on our Kent Police website for all our opportunities. And I'd just like to share with you our little our recruitment video, which just explains that we are more than the badge.
I am more than the hand that holds, the ear that listens. I am more than the voice that calms and the strength that protects. I am more than each decision that I have to make. I'm about more than just clocking in and clocking out. I'm more than keeping people safe, locking up those that would do us harm, and helping those in need. I am more than I ever thought I could be. I am more than the badge. I am a Kent police officer. Search Kent Police Jobs to find out how you can begin an amazing career that pays as soon as you start training. Kent Police, more than the badge.
And if you do want to know more, check out our All Singing and Dancing new Kent Police website. We've also got our Facebook and Instagram pages, and also follow us on Twitter. Thank you for listening this morning.
Thank you very much, Tarn. And we now have our next speaker, Nathan Pascal Smith from the NHS.
Good morning, Chloe. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to this event today. So hello everyone, thanks for joining. So I'm just going to share my presentation with you. So I work with the integrated care system, which basically looks after health and care across the whole of Kent and Medway. So it's not just big hospitals, it's acute hospitals, it's communities, mental health, and also their partners in the local councils and local authorities around care and social care. So it's a pretty big remit. And really what I work on is education engagements, career pathways, apprenticeships, and really anything linked to what supplies our workforce of today, of tomorrow and the future. So that's what we're going to look at today. And what I'm going to walk you through is really having a think about why you would want to come and work in health and care, and what are the values and behaviours that we look for that maybe you have or have an interest in. Also a little bit around the academic side, because obviously we have many routes that require different academic pathways, and whether or not that might be something that interests you and that you relate to and you might want to do as a career. So very quickly then, lots and lots of stuff you'll hear in the media, obviously because of the last year, the pandemic and COVID's obviously had a massive impact on our industry and our sector. But interestingly, it's actually made us really change how we think about recruitment, how we think about our staff. And equally, we've seen a really big surge in people interested in coming to help and work in our sector, which is fantastic. So these are the kind of what's called the NHS People Promises. And these are the things that we stand by as an entire sector, or as many organisations. So the first thing probably for me to say is I don't represent just one organisation. There's actually many organisations that sit under the NHS and Care banner. So for example, we have about 7 different major NHS organisations, hundreds of care homes, nursing homes, and hundreds of primary care or GP practices. And that doesn't even include what's called the third sector. So all of those voluntary organisations and charity organisations. But effectively, this kind of rainbow represents all of those really valued behaviours, intrinsic values and things that we stand for as one whole organisation. So a little bit then about Kent and Medway. Currently, within the health side, we've got around about 86,000 employees across Kent and Medway, which I think really does shock a lot of people when they realise just how large the NHS health sector is just in Kent and Medway. We're combined across the whole of England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. We're actually the biggest employer in Europe. So the opportunities are huge, and the variation in what you can do is huge as well. So in primary care, that's our GP surgeries. We've got around just over 6,000 staff. And again, that's not just doctors, as we'll see later on. And roughly, we have over 350 different job roles. So we're not just doctors and nurses, we're everything from plumbers, electricians, gardeners, therapists, doctors, surgeons, admin, trainers, pretty much you name it. There's probably a job role that covers that within health and care. And that's what really makes us such a diverse and large and exciting employer, with many different skill sets, many different opportunities. So you can have multitudes of careers or pathways if you came into the health and care sector. So what does that look like in Kent and Medway then? So we're soon going to be breaking down into 4 what are called integrated care partnerships. You don't need to worry about that too much, but basically that just means we've split the county up into 4. We've got North Kent, we've got West Kent, we've got East Kent, and we've got Medway and Swale. So these are our big acute hospitals, or sometimes known as district general hospitals, and each of them provide pretty much the same service, but on the whole they also provide the odd specialist services. So for example, if someone was to have a heart attack, it might be that actually they'd be taken down to Ashford because that's got an acute heart centre. So pretty much they've all got emergency departments, and again you might see in the press on occasion that services are moving and changing. That happens all the time in the health sector, unfortunately. But these are our big hospitals. So there's Darren Valley, Medway, Maidstone, Tunbridge Wells, Pembury, Ashford, Canterbury and Medway. So let's start to scale this up a little bit, because as we said, we're not just about hospitals, but to give you an idea, the East Kent Hospital Trust, so Margate, Canterbury and Ashford have about 15,000 staff alone. Medway Hospital has just under 5,000 staff. So these are really large, almost communities in their own rights. So let's add in our community partners: Medway Community Health, Medway Community Health Foundation Trust, the Kent and Medway Partnerships, which is mental health, and they form those kind of local services. So they're not hospitals in the same way as the big acute hospitals are, but they run things like minor injury units, which are these blue circles now, and lots of different outreach services. So you don't always have to go to an acute hospital to get treatment. Now we add in our doctors, or our primary care networks. So primary care network is basically a cluster of GP surgeries. So each one of these stethoscopes represents possibly anywhere between 3 or 8 GP practices. So again, if you start to scale that up, we can't really put that on the map because you wouldn't be able to see anything, but we're starting to layer up really now the kind of the scope and size of the services that are out there. Let's add in our partners then from CCAMS, the South East Coast Ambulance Service, who are actually based and run from Surrey, because they cover Surrey, Sussex, Kent and Medway, but they are obviously a major integral part of our system. As I said, this doesn't include all of our other partners. So all of those charities, all of those voluntary sectors, all of those other subsidiary organisations like Virgin, IC24, but also the wider community. So people like Kent Police, as Tanya was talking about, Kent Fire and Rescue, we work with them. So there's a lot of overlaps in our careers, in our skills, and in the opportunities that could present themselves to you if that was an area of interest. The other really exciting thing about our sector is we are what's called an education sector. So basically we work and are linked effectively to many of the big education organisations in Kent and Medway. So all of the big universities, as you can see at the bottom there, Greenwich, Canterbury Christchurch, University of Kent and the Medway School of Pharmacy. We work hand in hand with these organisations, because if you go through certain clinical routes, let's say nursing, for example, your education doesn't stop just when you finish maybe your foundation degree or a diploma or a degree. It continues throughout your career. And actually these universities work with us in order to develop those skills and the training. So they are again one of our partners. Really exciting. A couple of years ago we launched the first medical school in Kent and Medway. So that's a school for if you want to become a doctor, and that is dedicated purely to Kent and Medway. And that's a new medical school in the whole of the country, and they are doing things very differently to many of the other medical schools. And one of their remits is what's called widening participation, and that's basically about breaking down the barriers around some of the career pathways that we have in our sectors. So traditionally in the past, if you'd wanted to be a doctor, normally you would have had to have gone to a grammar school, you would have had to have got certain grades from certain areas. What this medical school is doing is breaking that down. And actually what we're reflecting on and realizing is that the opportunity to success should be equal across everybody. So no matter what school you go to, no matter what area you go to, or no matter what your background is, actually you should have the same equal opportunity to a career in health and care as anybody else. And we are really forging ahead with that. And the medical school is doing some great work. Obviously, let's not forget our colleges. So again, they form a huge part of our education system. And we're working very closely with them around some of the courses they run and how they integrate with our sector. So we can create pathways, or if you like, a pipeline for people that want to come into our sector. And again, we're doing things like this today with schools. Again, it's really important that you start to think about potential careers, or really what I would say is enterprise skills. So think about the things that you like, you enjoy, and you have an interest in, then match that to a job. And if you do that, 9 times out of 10, you'll actually have a really rewarding career and something that you're interested in, you're passionate about, and you get more than just money from. Because it's important. Money is really important, but it's not everything in a job. But equally, you also maybe have to think about what that journey looks like. So actually, you know, how am I going to get to where I want to get to? You've got to think about it a bit like a story. So you've got to write a chapter each time, and you've got to think about how I'm going to get to where I want to get to. Apprenticeships are obviously massive at the moment, and we support apprenticeships across the whole of health and care. It's a really huge, important sector for us, and a real change in how we recruit and how we train people. And it's actually been a real eye-opener and a bit of a saviour, if I'm honest, around workforce in our sectors. It's really opened up opportunity for our employers, and then equally for people like yourselves. So all this is really showing is, I just want to give you an example, that basically some of the courses are run year on year, and they're not all about being a clinician. So it's not just about treating patients in our sectors. There is as much around operational needs, so engineering, business admin, leadership, management, record keeping. So obviously all of the patient records have to be managed and dealt with. Obviously a very large digital agenda around some of the services that we provide and how things work. There's lab work, so pathology, histology, so sciences. So again, really what I'm trying to get across is that don't just think about our sectors in health and care as just being about clinical and just being about doctors and nurses or just treating patients. That's obviously vitally important, but we need everything else in order for that to happen. So what do you need to bring to this sector then? Well, really what we're looking for is those things that I mentioned earlier. So the things that you're passionate about and that make up you. And we call those the 6 C's. Not surprisingly, they obviously will start with C. And the first one is care. Seems quite obvious, but actually it's really important that you kind of have that intrinsic conversation, if you like, with yourself about what actually kind of makes you tick, what makes you really passionate and what you feel strongly about. So you've got to care, and what that really means is about you've got to care about people, because actually that empathy that you're going to have to show has to come through with patients, a bit like Tanya was saying, that maybe at one of their most vulnerable moments in their lives. And that may be through someone giving birth, through to someone being very ill, through to someone just needing some help and support and guidance, and unfortunately those people that are coming towards the end of their journey in life. Compassion, obviously. Competence. Now, competence isn't something you just intrinsically have, that's something you have to build up, but it is something you need to be aware of, and it's about really being the best that you can be. Communication obviously is really important. We have to talk to people from our entire communities at some of the most difficult moments and at some of their most fantastically wonderful moments in life. But we need to be able to communicate really well, clearly, concisely, so that people understand what they're going through, and equally that you understand what they're telling you. This one for me is really important, courage. And we probably don't talk about it enough, and it's a really difficult thing to talk about, because what is courage? But courage is really about having that kind of internal ability to look at something and have the confidence to actually stick with what you're doing. If you think about some of the things that obviously we have to deal with in health and care, it takes real courage to continue with that, to push through with that, and actually sometimes give people the support and help that they need. Commitment. A lot of these jobs, as I said, aren't just about money. They are about a career. They're about an intrinsic career. So that's a vocation. You don't go into things, some of the clinical roles necessarily, if it's not a real vocational thing that you're after. So it's not just about being 9 till 5. Obviously, a lot of our roles are shift work. They're 24/7. So that means working over holidays, bank holidays. It means working nights in some jobs. Not all of them, but some of them. But it's also about remembering that there's a patient, there's a person at the end of everything that we do. And that doesn't just stop at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So again, we build these up in order that ultimately we provide the best service to our communities and the people that we serve. So what are some of those behaviours look like? Well, there's a little bit of an overlap here. We are working for patients, as we've said. Respect and dignity, huge, absolutely huge. We're dealing with real human people from the age of just being born right through to maybe over 100 years old in their last moments of life. So if you don't have respect and dignity for that wider community, that empathy, then a clinical role probably isn't going to be for you. But remember all of those other 300 plus, 350 plus jobs and roles that are out there. Obviously, we're all about quality of care. And what that really means is whatever job you do, whatever you contribute, absolutely contributes to providing quality of care for the people of Kent and Medway. Obviously, we want to improve people's lives. That's about making people healthier, fitter, and that they can look after themselves. It's not all about everyone having to come into a hospital or having to go to a GP surgery. Compassion. Clearly, that's really important. You've got to have compassion. You've got to be able to listen and communicate with those people that are trying to tell you their story, which you're then going to help them with. University of Kent did a little bit of study back last year, obviously in a really difficult year, and it was just really to look at kind of what do we think students are thinking that are really important in careers and jobs going forward. And emotional intelligence. Don't worry, emotional intelligence is really just about how you kind of handle, think about emotionally and apply those skills to the job that you do. But obviously through the pandemic, that has stretched everybody to a new limit. Remote working. Yes, we are remote working, even in health and care. So at the moment, I'm sat at home doing my job because I can't go to an office at the moment. But what that's really pushed on is the digital agenda. So we're now seeing things like what's called telederm. And telederm is basically dermatology services. So the skin effectively being dealt with over the internet, taking photographs and sending them in on secure apps and platforms, and also about how we provide services remotely from virtual consultations right through to patients being able to log in and update themselves some of their clinical statuses. Resilience. We've certainly learned about that, haven't we, in the last year because of COVID, and we are still learning from that. Really, really, really important. Again, these aren't things that you're just naturally born with. These are things that you learn, and we would support you through that entire journey. The learning and development opportunities with health and care are absolutely massive, right through to some basic fundamental mandatory training, right through to some really complex kind of psychology training, if that's what people want. Self-awareness. So who are you? That's really important. And that's a really important question, I think, for you to ask yourselves about kind of who you are and what you want to be, because that will really help you to start to kind of form that pathway of where you want to go and how you're going to get there. Remember writing that story. So what's the right route for you? Taking responsibility. Again, unfortunately, no one's going to hand it to you on a plate. You do have to work for that. You have to think about that, but you'll get the support and the help, both in a job, in a career, but even before. So one thing that the health and care is really great at is kind of mentoring and supporting people that aren't even technically part of our workforce. So again, those opportunities will be there. We are building those as we speak at the moment, and we're just trying to become better at kind of reaching out to all ages and all groups of society to help and support them in doing that. Leadership, that's not just about you becoming a manager, that's about you leading yourself. You are a leader yourselves. We're all leaders because we all make decisions. So we link all of those together, and actually we're starting to really think about some of those kind of skills, next steps that we have to take. So how on earth do you get there? We know it's a minefield. We know it's a minefield. We know it's really difficult when you're kind of at that school age point where you're making decisions about options, your post options, you're heading towards sixth form, college. Where are you going? What's the right route? What box do we need to tick? How do we get there? The basics I would say of this is just really trying to keep it clear and simple. Don't overcomplicate it, because the key here is there is always an opportunity and you can always change at any age. So even if you start your journey and you start writing that story now, and in say 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, you think actually maybe that wasn't the right journey, or I want to change that, you still can in health and care. Remember, it's huge, 350 plus jobs, absolute masses of opportunities. We are always recruiting, and we're always thinking about innovation, and we're always changing in order to be ready for the future. So don't hang up everything on making one solitary decision now. Yes, think about that self-awareness. Think about what different pathways will give you, whether it's A levels, T levels, straight into an apprenticeship. It's that self-awareness again. What's the right route for you? What do you know will work for you? And there will be a pathway in our sector to support you to do that. And the really key thing is that, as I said before, in our sector, it doesn't just stop when you get your first job. You're continuously learning and developing in our sector. And that's what's really exciting, because it gives you the opportunity to have such a diverse career across many different things. Now, I won't lie, some of the jobs are hard, and some of the training and education you need to get there will be tough. You can't train to be a nurse in a week. It will take you between 3 and 4 years. If you wanted to be a doctor, it will take you about 6 years. So absolutely, some of these are not quick and easy like decisions. But ultimately, we don't have age caps on any of our jobs. So, you know, if you change your career, that's fine. You can do that, and we'll support you to do that. What I will flag up is volunteering. It's a really, really great opportunity to, one, contribute. Remember that self-awareness, emotional intelligence. It's a way for you to contribute. You'll learn skills, you'll network, which is really important in this day and age. Remember those enterprise elements that we've been talking about. So networking, getting to know people, joining groups that are associated, working maybe for a voluntary sector, or even volunteering for one of the hospitals. And again, we'll be growing that this year. There'll be some really exciting opportunities for that. So just very, very quickly, as we head into the last couple of bits. So what does a potential career pathway look like? This is a little bit of a static pathway, I would say, a bit traditional, but it just gives you an idea through an apprenticeship route. So we go everywhere from level 2 right the way through to level 7. So that's master's degree, so from diploma up to degrees, foundation degrees, masters, PhDs. You can't do as an apprenticeship yet, but that could be coming. And what we've got here are just 3 different kind of variations. So we've got some science type pathways, from healthcare science assistants right through to clinical science. That could be anyone from doing pathology, lab work, right through to nuclear science. On the middle one, we've got some more kind of clinical type roles, I suppose, in dental. And again, we often forget about that. You know, dental is part of our sector as well. And then on the other side, quite an interesting one, which is around hospitality. So if we look at some of our hospitals, they have private wings, and they also have a different way of providing what's called inpatient care. So that's people that just maybe come in for a day, a couple of days. And actually, you've got to think about how are these people fed? How do they get fluids, so waters, drinks? Do they have rooms available? What are those rooms going to be like? So in some of our hospitals, they actually have complete hospitality services. So again, we see a lot of people that have come over during the pandemic who have lost their retail jobs. or in the hotel services or tourism that have got really good transferable skills into our sector. So if you want to find out any more, as I've said, the problem in our sector is we're made up of many employers, so it sometimes is hard to kind of get that single point of access. But if you look up the healthcare apprenticeship standards online, the reason I'm flagging that is not just about apprenticeships, but it's a really good source of information about all of the jobs. So if you want to go somewhere that's going to give you a little insight into all of the different jobs, that's a really good place to go. Alternatively, you could go to the NHS Healthcare Careers website. Again, that will cover everything. That one can feel a little bit heavy at times. It can be a bit tricky to navigate, but it is a really good site. And what we'll be doing in Kent and Medway over the next year is actually building our own academy, which will actually provide a kind of single point of access for anybody in our community in Kent or Medway that can actually come to that site to find the information they really need for the help and support and the guidance around careers and support. So that is me done. So thank you very much and all the best. And please do get in touch if there's anything you'd like to know.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Up next, we have Jane Spurden from Bakkavor.
Hello, my name's Jane Spurden and I'm an early careers manager for Bakkavor. One of our sites is in Tilmerson, Dover. I'm just going to share my screen. Right, so I'm going to talk about Bakkavor apprenticeships. So group revenue is 1.85 billion. We have 19,600 people across 39 locations in 3 countries. We are leader provider of fresh prepared food in the UK. We've voted 40 years at market experience. Over 10 years experience operating in the US, China, with a growing presence in these regions. You will see we've got 23 locations in the UK, 5 factories in the US, and we have 9 in China. So over 30 years experience. So it was actually founded by the August and Le Gudmundsson, and they actually started off as fishermen, so they were Icelandic. And obviously they sold their seafood, and you can see throughout that they've then produced and grown and grown and grown. They took over Bakkavor in 2000, and we used to be called Geese before that. As you can see, in 2016, we actually made our 30 years. So what do we develop products across for UK categories? So we do ready meals, salads, desserts, pizzas and breads. And the reason why you might not have heard of Bakkavor is that we don't have our own labelled foods. So when you go into M&S and you see their ready meals, they would have most likely come from our factories. So if you go into Tesco's and you buy the finest pizzas, that's most likely come from our factory. Desserts like cheesecakes, profiteroles in M&S, Waitrose, all the major departments, they would have most likely come from us. We actually have 2,000 products in the UK portfolio. Just to give an example, 560 new products created in UK in 2018, and that hasn't slowed down at all. So UK customers, so we do Tesco's, M&S, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Co-op, Aldi, Morrison's and Asda. As I said, 40 years experience in private label, progressive relationship with key customers for many years, 85% of UK sales with our 4 customers. Supplier choice, collaborative approach to business planning. We're leaders of insight and innovation. We're always looking at new ideas and category champions. So our international customers, there's a couple. So Harris Teeter, KFC, Costa, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Pret. Diverse customer base, supply fast-growing Western food service brands in Asia. Growing presence in the UK with key retail and food service partners, using their expertise in delivering shorter shelf life fresh food into new markets. So our vision and our strategy. Our vision is to lead the way in bringing great taste and fresh food to people around the world. One is number 1 position in the UK. 2 is to accelerate growth in high potential international markets. 3 is to drive operational efficiency. How we do this with our Bakkavor values. Our success is rooted in our values. We have 5 core values that describe how we work together and the behaviours we expect from everyone who works at Bakkavor. And we're actually scored against these yearly, and they are actually embedded into our business wherever you go. So can-do attitude, our customer care, our teamwork, our innovation, and getting it right, keeping it right. So just want to talk about a structure of a group apprentice programme. So we do several apprentices programmes. We have a 2-year structured programme alongside studying a qualification with monthly meetings to discuss skill development and review progress. 4 years for engineering and procurement. So every other apprenticeship is 2 years, but engineering and procurement is 4 years. And they can be from different levels. So it can start for engineering is a level 3. But we also do level 4 and level 5 qualifications, depending what route you take. Apprentices get given a nominated charity and set tasks raising money for them. So they're not there just to do a job. You're also there to work with the community, also building your skills for communication, working with people across there to try and work with charities. So one of them we've been doing a lot of food parcels and giving those out this year. You also have a buddy on site when you join to help you settle in quickly, because we do know what it's like when you come onto a new business. It's quite daunting, but there will be somebody there. A nominated mentor for additional support and guidance. That mentor is somebody at a higher level, and they would have been through the process, exactly what you're going through. So they would understand and be able to give you guidance throughout your apprenticeship. So how to apply? www.bakkavor.com careers, early careers, apprentices. But if you put Bakkavor apprentices in, they will come up. So I just wanted to give you an example, and I'll let you read this yourself. But this is Molly Johnson, a development apprentice, and she started off 3 years ago, 4 now, in September. She actually did the development technologies at Bakkavor Spalding, and she started off apprentice, and she did a level 5 originally. And she sailed through that, and then she got a full-time role as a development technologist. I'm pleased to say that she's actually just got promoted into a senior technologist role. So you can see that it doesn't just stop after your apprenticeship. We look and keep looking at your development throughout. We class apprentices as our next future leaders. So apprenticeships 3-year plans. So last year we took on 33. In 2021 intake, we're actually going to be taking on 44 apprentices in September across the UK. In 2022 intake, 80 apprentices across the UK. And in 2023, we want to take 150 apprentices across the UK, because we believe that apprentices are the next way going forward. So why I'm thinking is that everybody will think, I don't want to work in a factory. I don't want to be on a production line. But how to run a business, you need other parts. So you've got development. So if you're an individual who likes to design, so wants to design their own products and get them onto the supermarkets, work with chefs to be able to design them, work with people like M&S, Tesco's to promote those products and get them on the shelf. It's a great achievement to see your product on the line, what you've developed. Engineering, if you're like to take things apart and put them together, engineering is your key. And there's a massive shortage for manufacturing engineering across the UK. And that's because years and years ago, we used to have apprentices, and then all of a sudden apprentices were no longer seen viable. And then all of a sudden they've come back in, but there's nothing in between. So there's a massive loss. So IS, so if you're into computers and you like doing programs and things like that, we actually have our own IS, so they look after all our systems across the UK. So if you're into computers, that would possibly be a route for you. Procurement is an exciting one. You get to go all around the world because you'll be trying to buy produce and learn to negotiate. Finance, so that is from starting off for accountants, but you do your AAT qualifications and you can go all the way up to level 7. So every time that you get up to a level, you'll get promoted. Technical, so we do a technical route so that everybody finds that interesting. So if you like to look at quality and hygiene, that one's really interesting because that's making food safe. Supply chain, so looking how product comes in and then taking it all the way through the thing. So when we're taking it on the shop floor, we have to have a plan. That plan is looking at how do we get it from it coming into the goods in all the way to out to the supermarkets, and that is done and it changes daily. So hygiene, if you wanted to go look at how to use clean specialist equipment, which is a really good one, and that's gone into a level 4 and level 5 qualification. Manufacturing, so manufacturing, people think, well, working in a factory, well actually by the time the end of the 2 years you will be at a manager level, so you'll be going into a section leader level, so you'll be learning the process all the way through from the start all the way to a section leader. So by the end of the 2 years you will be managing people. You also do a level 5 foundation degree with that qualification. HR, you also will do a CIPD qualification with HR, and that's really interesting if you're a people person, but also likes to look at strategy because HR has a major role with strategy within the business. And health and safety, that's a new one. You know, health and safety is becoming one of the most important things on site. There is nothing worth getting hurt for. So health and safety is one of the criteria, and that we've put a level 5 qualification in for that. So our apprentice salaries, our starting salaries in advanced is 16,000, higher is 17,500. I know they always seem back to front to me as well, if you're thinking that. So year 2, this will increase to advanced 18,000 and higher 19,500. And if you think that for apprenticeship, that isn't actually a bad pay coming out of school on 16,000. There are further increases in years 3 and 4 for engineering and procurement. And to just give you an example of engineering. So when you come to your end of your 4 years engineering, yes, it's 4 hard years of, you know, working and trying to do a qualification at the same time and learning the trade. But you would be potentially on nearly £40,000 by the time you finish that 4 years. And if you're starting at the age of 16, by the age of 20, you could be on that amount of money. So we don't also do that. So once your apprenticeship's over, we don't just send it there. We look at where's your next steps. So we do apprentice levies for all our employees if they want to take them on board. But we do look at actually where's your next steps, where do we get to in the next 3 years, how we can get you up the ladder. So if successful, what can we offer? Discount gym membership, staff shop. Our staff shops are amazing. We do absolutely everything, even hot food in there. Occupational health clinics, so we have our own occupational health on site, so you can always get advice and making sure that you're looked after. My Rewards, street retailers discount, so we have new look discount, Curry's discount, holiday discount, all that sort of thing. And we have a great site employee form, so Seth organised this site social events and competitions, so they are nominated by the employees. There is no management in there. That is all people who have been nominated. So just wanted to give you our careers path, to give you a look at it. So you can see there's so many different career paths in manufacturing, not just working on shop floor. There's supply chain, there's development, procurement, HR, hygiene, even the laboratories, recruitment, commercial, learning and development, technical, manufacturing, finance, engineering, health and safety, and IS and marketing. So there's so much opportunity. And, you know, even if you go into that career at a certain age, there's often the chance to sidestep as well. So there's always the opportunity. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you, Jane. Unfortunately, our next speaker, Marie from Civil Service, is unable to attend today, but she has shared a link with us to their page, which you'll be able to view in your own time. And our presentation will be shared on our social media page as well, so please do take a look after this event. We now have our final speaker, Paul Rutherford from Viking Crew.
Thank you, Chloe. Yes, to finish off this morning, nice to be with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that we do at Viking Crew, and also a little bit about myself and my career path. I've been working in the industry that I deal with for, I think you can hear me now, sorry. I've been working in the industry I've been working with for over 20 years, both at sea and also for my current company where I'm operations director in the UK. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Hopefully you can see that. We're going to talk a little bit about a career at sea. And Viking Crew is a company that was established back as Viking Recruitment in 1988. We have 3 sectors to our business: the crewing side, which is the area that I deal with. Also, we have 2 training arms, which is the Maritime Skills Academy and also Chiltern Maritime. So who is it and what is it that we do? Well, Viking itself has been working in the cruise and super yacht industry since 1988. We're a private business based in Dover, but we do have offices located in other parts of the world, so we do have a real global reach, and we work within the recruitment, within the crew management, employment and training for seafarers that are working in the cruise and super yacht sectors of the industry. I myself started my career back in the late 90s for P&O Ferries in Dover before I moved on to work in London, and then spent over 10 years cruising around the world working at sea for a UK cruise company, and then came shoreside just under 10 years ago to be working for Viking and for all our clients that we work with internationally. Why is it that people would want to work at sea? Well, there's quite a number of reasons, and one of the first things is the opportunity to be able to travel the world. Certainly, we've been talking a bit about working from home this morning. We've been talking about what's happened with COVID, but ships all around the world, and that includes passenger ships, have still been crewed over the last 12 months during the COVID period. Viking deals with cruise ships and super yachts, so of course their operations have been very much limited in the last 12 months due to COVID, but I'm sure many of you will have seen on the news recently the large container ship that had problems in the Suez Canal. That meant that it couldn't move for almost a week. These ships, as well as many others, are of course being crewed all around the world to provide trade for us internationally. Travelling around the world can be anywhere from across Europe to the Far East to Australia, down to Antarctica, to Central America, to South America. And just currently now, a lot of cruise ships are looking to relaunch, go back into service over the summer here around the UK. And it's not just here that's happening, that's also happening in the US, it's happening in Australia and across Europe, as many cruise lines are getting ready to start welcoming guests again after almost a year of not having any passengers on board and operating wherever they can across the whole of the world. What about the kind of jobs that you can do on board? Well, to be honest, within the cruise industry, within the super yacht industry, the list is endless, and there's some pictures here on the screen that show some of the different roles that you can undertake, from deck officers, marine officers, engineers, those that make sure that everything is running and the ship is able to get from A to B, through to really every particular position in the hotel side. And if you imagine a cruise ship or a yacht is a little bit like someone's private residence or like a hotel, you think about all the different kind of positions and roles that are on there. Everything from chefs through to waiters, to housekeeping, to spa. Some of the larger cruise lines have complete shopping arcades, as well as many other attractions and facilities for the guests. So the kind of roles that are available are everything from being a nurse or a doctor, through to things like entertainment, through to being children's activity staff. So there's so many different positions that you can do on board across all the different kind of ships. But how would you be able to get on board, and how would you be able to get the relevant training? And there is a number of different ways of doing this, and in some ways it does depend on the kind of position that you actually want. Within the industry, within our business, part of the Viking Maritime Group, Chiltern Maritime provides sponsorship for cadets, and we have around 400 school and college leavers that are taking up a 3-year apprenticeship to become a deck officer or a marine engineer or electro-technical officer. So within the technical side of operating a ship, they undertake a 3-year course at a maritime school in the UK, and within that course there's also elements where you would go to sea to be able to undertake the practical elements of the training that is needed. That's one avenue for those that perhaps are interested in the more technical side of going to sea, and this training is fully sponsored, so it does mean that perhaps if you were considering maybe going on to do further college or university studies by undertaking a cadetship, you could do that, and the actual cost of that is picked up by the sponsorship company, which could be another shipping line, a cruise line, or a charity. And then after 3 years of undertaking this studying, not only would you have an academic qualification that could be a foundation degree or a HND, you also have the license to be able to undertake your position on board, which could be within the deck department, the engine department, or the technical, electro-technical side. If you're looking at going into work in a hospitality role, a guest-facing role, dealing with guests or passengers, then the way into that often tends to be through experience, through having land-based employment and training. So you might well have studied at a hotel school, you might well have taken up some culinary qualifications if you are interested in cooking, or you might well have done some other kind of leisure or tourism training and work experience. And that's what a lot of the people that we work with, our clients, cruise lines, are looking for, is people that have the experience based on land that now can do on board the ship. So for those kind of roles, it's more the soft skills that are required, and also being a good people person. As has been mentioned throughout this morning, there's lots of qualities that are interchangeable, and by going to work at sea, many of those that have done that over the last 12 months, particularly during the pandemic, have had to be very resilient, and that's one thing that makes certainly a good seafarer. So as far as ages, to become a cadet, we're looking at around the age of 18 to be able to apply for some of the hospitality roles. Depends on the company. Some will take applicants from the age of 18, some will take applicants from the age of 21, particularly those that are American companies. They have different age requirements, but any previous qualifications and experience are of course very much appreciated. From my side, having the opportunity to travel for over 10 years around the world was fantastic. Meeting new people, seeing new cultures, visiting places that you would only have ever thought you'd see maybe on the TV or on a film, and really does open your eyes to new opportunities. So that's certainly one of the plus sides for mine, to be able to go and work away, be paid whilst travelling, and then able to come back home as well and continue your career like myself in a shore-based position, which I'm currently doing, because within our industry there's a lot of shore-based infrastructure here across Dover. We have one of the busiest ferry ports, of course, in the UK, so there's opportunities there. And as an island nation, I think people have a lot of heritage and history with maybe family members that have worked at sea or within our ferry industry, so lots of opportunities. It's just a brief little overview for you today. For those that would like further information, I would like to direct you to a couple of our websites here at Viking. VikingCrew.com is the business that deals with recruitment for seafarers, and that has details on the positions that we are searching candidates for across the cruise and super yacht sectors. For those interested in the cadetship programme, that is with our sister company Chiltern Maritime, and there's their website, chilternmaritime.com, and they take applications for 2 intakes a year for September, and there's also another intake in January. But if you think you'd like to follow the route of becoming a cadet and then apply for that, then Chiltern Maritime is the best place to go for that. Certainly for opportunities for progression, for growth, we've been having cadets through our programme for probably over 20 years now, and many of those that have undertaken cadetships have gone on to become captains, chief engineers, harbour masters, superintendents, or directors of shore-based companies. So with regards to career progression, there's lots of opportunities there as well in having those opportunities. So I'd like to thank you for your time this morning, and I'll hand back to Chloe. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you very much to all the rest of our speakers as well for taking the time today to talk to these young people. I hope that everyone has enjoyed the live event. Once again, just a reminder, this event has been recorded and it will be shared on the Dover District Council social media pages. So if you would like to have a look or share it with your friends and watch it at a later date, then please do so. And if you have any questions for any of our speakers as well, you can either ask your teachers to contact us directly, or if you'd like to speak to us, please email community@dover.gov.uk. And that will also be shared on our social media page if you forget. And thank you all again.